Aaron Rodgers is finally traded to the Jets from the Packers, as we all expected months ago. And, compensation wise, I feel like this was a win win for both teams for sure. Because, the Packers knew they were going to have to move off him. He wasn't playing there next year. Jets obviously wanted him. And, I think the key to this trade, the big incentive, was that 2024 second round pick that can become a first if he plays 65% of the games, which I assume he will. But obviously the Jets that was the biggest problem with this deal. They wanted to be a little bit protected just in case he were to, not play the second year or not sustain an injury or something. Now they have more protection. Other than that, the rest of the picks were pretty much just pick swaps. I think you can say both teams won this trade. And for the Packers, just to talk about them for a quick second, I mean, they got to find out this year, what is Jordan Love? How good can Jordan Love be? We don't really know what he is yet. I think that we'll know by week 10 what Jordan Love is. But right now there's a lot of unknown, and it's not very clear cut what he is at this point, which is can be interesting. And then you go to the Jets, and the thing that I really want to talk about with them is can they win a title with Aaron Rodgers? Is it possible for them to do so? And with that, you really got to go into the core of this team and what they were missing. I mean, last year you look at this team, really good defensive team. This is a top 3 defensive team. Sauce Gardner was a slam dunk of a pick. And you got other guys like Quentin Williams. You have players on this defense. And that showed for them last year. They were one of the best defensive teams in the league last year because they made plays when they needed to. Sauce Gardner showed, he might be revered as the number 1 corner next year for all we know. Very young team. And then offensively, there were strides that I saw. Garrett Wilson obviously wins Offensive Rookie of the Year, which is great. Breece Hall, before he got injured, probably would have beat him out for Offensive Rookie of the Year. That's how good of a year he was having. Breece Hall is going to be revered as probably he's going to get into that top 5 back conversation next year. That's how good I think he is. Really talented back, showed it in just 4 or 5 games last year. And that's going to be a huge weapon for Aaron Rodgers. And, the good thing about Breece Hall, he's a really good receiving back. Aaron Rodgers likes to play with his receiving backs. We saw what he did with Aaron Jones and all that. And, at back, they have Michael Carter, too, really solid player. Obviously, they went into free agency. They picked up Lazard, who, Rodgers has a good connection with. So that's going to be a seamless transition. They have Jeremy Ruckert at tight end that they haven't really utilized. And, they got a lot of other playmakers on offense, but their biggest problem, obviously, was the quarterback situation. Whether it was going to be, they had Mike White, who played decent for them, and then obviously the disaster of Zach Wilson. And they just needed, I think the biggest game that was the most glaring when we saw what their problems were was that game against the Patriots, where it was a battle of the defenses. Both defenses played really good, and then Zach Wilson just couldn't go down the field. He couldn't get the job done. And, now that you bring in a guy like Aaron Rodgers, that's going to change the game. That's going to change when you have those Hall of Fame figures like that, they make plays. Rodgers, I don't think they're going to get the Rodgers we saw last year. Last year, he had 1 foot in and 1 foot out the door. I think he's going to take this pretty seriously. I think a lot of people are worried about, the New York market and are afraid that, maybe it's too big for him or he's going to get judged too much. I think he's going to feed off the New York market. That's what a guy like Rodgers has been waiting for. Rodgers is a media guy. He's going to fit right in New York. He's a character, and New York's full of them. And he's going to fit right in with those guys. But I think the biggest glaring issue with them and their title hopes is going to be, can you get past this very top heavy AFC? The AFC is really good. The AFC is no NFC. And, to his credit, that Packers team that they put together last year wasn't good enough. Wasn't good enough. And I still think this Jets team in this draft needs to get at least one more weapon, which they will. And they have the 13th pick at their disposal. So that's not something to be that worried about. But obviously, this AFC, very top heavy. You look at their own division. They got to compete with the Bills of Josh Allen, the Dolphins of Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, Tua. If Tua stays healthy, they're usually a 10-win team. And the Patriots with Bill Belichick and his offensive mindset. That's going to be a lot to handle. And that's just in division. You got Kansas City, who's coming back for more. You have the Cincinnati Bengals and Joe Burrow. A lot of teams got better. Who knows what the Raiders are going to be with Jimmy Garoppolo, Devontae Adams, Josh Jacobs. You would assume that the Broncos are going to get better with Russell Wilson, Jerry Jeudy, the new head coach that they got. You would just assume those teams are going to get better. The Browns are a dark horse. You have Deshaun Watson. He's going to be full force. There's a lot of teams in the AFC. AFC is going to be really tough to maneuver. And, I really think it's going to take Rodgers about 2 years to really set in. These first years are always sketchy. First years are always, you're gelling with the team. We just saw that with Russell Wilson. Didn't really go that well. Now, obviously, Brady, beat the stigma because in his first year, he went on and he won the Super Bowl. But that was a weird year as it was. That was a COVID year, and it was just, and he's the greatest, And, Rodgers is one of the greats too. So, I could see a world where it happens. Garrett Wilson would have to have a ridiculous year for that to happen. So would Breece Hall. But I could see a world where it happens. I definitely think they're top 4 in the AFC with this move. But, it's not going to be easy. You got to compete, like I said, with the Burrows, the Josh Allens, and the Patrick Mahomes. And he's right atop that. And, like I said, I think that it's going to go a lot smoother than the situation that happened in Denver with Russell Wilson. Because I think Rodgers is a far more talented quarterback at this stage than Russell Wilson. We forget that a year ago he was back-to-back MVP guy. So he's a heck of a player. And then I think if you look at the defense of this team, they're well-rounded. They were really only missing a quarterback. And that is another thing that I do want to segue into is what does this mean for Zach Wilson? And I was really looking at it, and I read an article a bit ago, and it kind of flipped a way that Zach Wilson could actually succeed. And what I think you do is I think you actually, if you're the Jets, you keep Zach Wilson. Don't try to trade him away for like some 5th round pick or something. Keep Zach Wilson. Let him sit behind one of the greatest to ever play for 2, 3, how many ever years they have Rodgers. Then after that, integrate him for a bit. Have Zach Wilson as your backup. Let him learn. Because I think, his biggest issue, other than, maybe some arm strength problems, would be probably his, maturity. Probably his maturity. Because you can tell he's an immature. He plays immature out there. You can tell that, some of the decisions, some of the things he says, some of his actions. Give him 2 years to learn under one of the greats, and, maybe you develop him properly. And, that's not a bad backup in this league, I'm not going to lie. And that's a win-win for your situation. And even if you're the Jets, you don't look as dumb for drafting him, which I thought on draft day was a bad mistake to get Zach Wilson at 2. But I think there's still a role for him on the team. But, my final verdict with, can the Jets win the Super Bowl? I think that, if they can find a way to get into, if they can find a way to properly develop their younger guys that they already have, and they can retain Rodgers for a year two, I think year two they could win the Super Bowl. I think this year they're going to be a tough out. Currently, as it stands right now, I think the fourth best team in the AFC. They might have the Bills. They might be tied for third with the Bills. That's going to be a heck of a showdown when those guys play. And we forget the Jets, they had the Bills on the ropes last year in those games without a guy like Aaron Rodgers. So, I mean, I think the biggest thing this alarms is the Bills fans today. I'm alarmed if I'm a Bills fan. But, great for the Jets fan, great for the city of New York, great for this to happen. The league's better when the Jets are winning. And, I would like to see Rodgers take them to Title Town.